The 05.17 hours, northern Persian Gulf. Dawn lies flat across the water, catapult steam drifting under a pale red sky as deck crews signal in silence across USS Abraham Lincoln. Then the radar picture fractures into 70 fast-moving returns from the Iranian coast. The first detection comes from an E-2D Hawkeye orbiting 110 nautical miles south of Bandar Abbas. Its AN/APY-9 radar paints a dense wave. 70 aircraft lifting in 4 coordinated cells from Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, and Havadaria. Track speeds build past 480 knots. Altitudes split high and low. The formation is not random. It is layered for penetration. F-14As above, MiG-29s in the middle, F-4Es and Su-24s low over the water. Inside Abraham Lincoln's Carrier Intelligence Center, the tactical action officer studies the scope for 3 seconds and gives the order. Commit the combat air patrol, wake the full Aegis screen, prepare for anti-ship release. This is not harassment. This is a strike package designed to hit the U.S. Navy F-35 squadron before the carrier group can widen the battle space. At 05:19 hours, 8 F-35Cs already airborne pivot north and east in perfect silence. Their APG-81 radars remain disciplined. Their data links do the work. Each jet sees what all of them see, hostile tracks separating into missile carriers and escorts. 2 EA-18G Growlers slide outward on the flanks and begin electronic attack. Noise floods the spectrum. Iranian fire control radars flicker, recover, then flicker again. On the carrier, 2 more F-35Cs launch within 90 seconds. Deck crews move under red lighting, no wasted motion. Behind them, 2 FA-18E Super Hornets arm for backup intercept. Farther west, an MH-60R Seahawk continues its anti-submarine barrier patrol, dipping sonar ready, a pair of Mark 54 torpedoes still slung beneath its frame in case the surface fight gains a subsurface dimension. At Al Dhafra, 2 A-10Cs on strip alert sit loaded with AGM-65 Maverick missiles, not yet relevant to the air battle, but now pushed to immediate readiness as Theater Command expands the response window. At 05:21 hours, the range closes to 92 nautical miles. The Iranian package tightens, high cover climbs above 28,000 feet. Low flyers drop beneath 500 feet over the Gulf using sea clutter to mask their approach. The Hawkeye controller issues concise instructions, no emotion, no excess words. Raid main split confirmed, weapons free on designated tracks. The first AM-120D leaves an F-35C at 05:21:34, then 7 more. Thin white lines, clean separations. The missiles arc out beyond visual range under cooperative targeting from the entire formation. Missiles away. Time to intercept, 58 seconds. Iranian escorts react late. Chaff blooms. Defensive turns begin. 2 MiG-29s break hard left. 1 F-14 climbs and rolls, trying to drag the missile into thinner air. It does not matter. At 05:22 hours, the first impacts register. 1 MiG disappears, then another. An F-14 loses its right-wing route and tumbles burning into the Gulf. 4 kills in the first exchange. 2 probable. The formation still comes. At 05:23 hours, Iranian low-level strike elements reach 71 nautical miles from the carrier group and execute the critical phase. Under the cover of escorting fighters, 18 aircraft release anti-ship missiles in staggered sequence. Nor and Cater-class cruise missiles drop, ignite, and flatten toward the water. The threat picture multiplies instantly. 70 aircraft are no longer the main problem. Now there are 26 sea-skimming missiles inside the battle space. The F-35s transition without hesitation. 2 aircraft remain focused on escorts. 6 descend slightly and begin engaging launch aircraft with additional AIM-120Ds. The Growlers push harder. Iranian tactical radio traffic becomes chaotic. 1 Su-24 breaks formation. Another continues straight and dies under a direct hit at 42 nautical miles. Fireball, debris trail, no shoot. At 05:24 hours, the shipboard layer activates. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, 14 nautical miles ahead of the carrier, illuminates the raid through Aegis Baseline 9. SPY arrays stitch aircraft and cruise missiles into one coherent picture. The Air Defense Commander authorizes SM-6 engagement on the highest energy tracks first. 6 missiles launch in sequence. Vertical cells flash orange. White plumes punch skyward. Seconds later, another destroyer fires 4 more. The geometry is brutal and precise. High threats get hit far out. Mid-course updates flow across the group. At 05:24:41, the first SM-6 intercept obliterates an inbound missile at 34 nautical miles. A second detonates 11 seconds later, then a third. The sky briefly blooms with orange spheres over dark blue water. But saturation is the point. Iranian planners understand that. They send waves, not arrows. At 0525 hours, the remaining fighters press within 58 nautical miles. 2 Iranian F-14s launch long-range air-to-air missiles toward the F-35 formation based on off-board cueing from coastal radar. 1 U.S. jet takes fragment damage near the left tail after a near miss. The aircraft shudders. Warning lights flare. The pilot stays on station for 23 more seconds, fires 1 more AM-120D, scores, then turns south under escort. A second F-35C absorbs superficial skin damage from debris after an exploding MiG disintegrates across its flight path. That is the hit in the title. Brief, real, dangerous, not decisive. At 0526 hours, the range to the cruise missiles collapses below 20 nautical miles. Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles begin to fire. 8 launch almost back-to-back from the screen ships. Combat systems officers call out ranges. 18 miles, 16, 14. Missiles away. Impact in 14 seconds. Direct hit, another direct hit. 1 inbound breaks apart and cartwheels into the sea. Another survives the first shot, weaves, then vanishes under the second. On Abraham Lincoln's flight deck, launch operations stop cold. Damage control parties stage with foam, litters, and breathing gear. Medical teams wait by the island. Every eye goes upward. At 0527 hours, the air battle compresses into visual range. 2 Iranian MiG-29s attempt a flanking dash toward the recovering damaged F-35. A fresh pair of U.S. F-35Cs cuts across from high right. AIM-9X seekers lock. 2 shots, 2 detonations. The MiGs vaporize into fragments and flame. More Iranian aircraft try to disengage. They cannot fully separate. Their formation has lost cohesion. Pilots are now reacting individually. That is fatal in a networked fight. The F-35s exploit every seam. 1 Su-24, then another F-4E, then an F-14 turning too late. Kill count rises to 19. At 0528 hours, 3 cruise missiles break through the outer layers and streak below radar horizon toward the carrier screen. Close-in doctrine takes over. 1 destroyer fires its last ready ESSM at 6.8 nautical miles and kills the nearest threat. The other 2 keep coming. The Phalanx CIWS mounts rotate with mechanical violence. Radar locks, barrels spin. A raw metallic scream tears across the sea. The first Phalanx opens at 1.4 nautical miles. Tracer arcs form a solid rope. The incoming missile disintegrates in a burst of sparks and fuel. The second survives the first burst, then shatters under a crossing engagement from the carrier's starboard mount at 0.9 nautical miles. Fragments rain into the water. 1 piece the size of a fuel tank skips across the surface and strikes a screen ship's weather deck, injuring 2 sailors with shrapnel. No fatalities. The line holds. At 0529 hours, everything accelerates. The surviving Iranian fighters attempt one last coordinated rush. 12 aircraft, mixed types, low fuel, weapons nearly spent. They drive straight at the American formation as if momentum alone can change the equation. It cannot. The F-35s now own the altitude, the picture, and the timing. They bracket the threat from 2 axes. 4 AMRAAMs launch first, then 4 more. The sky erupts. 12 impacts, simultaneous detonations. Burning wreckage falls in 6 separate columns. 1 aircraft loses power and rolls inverted into the sea. Another breaks into 3 pieces before its pilot can eject. Radio intercepts catch only fragments. Confused calls, clipped warnings, then silence. At 0530 hours, the last serious missile danger disappears. 1 final sea-skimming weapon emerges from clutter at 4.2 nautical miles. It has evaded everything else. It is fast, low, and almost invisible against the water. A destroyer catches it at the edge of the engagement envelope and fires. Miss. The missile keeps coming. The carrier's aft phalanx takes over at 0.8 nautical miles. Burst. Correction. Burst again. The missile explodes so close that the shock wave ripples across the ship's wake. Every exposed sailor feels it in the chest. The fragments fall short. Above, the airfight becomes execution. 4 Iranian fighters turn north. 6 turn west. None escape cleanly. The F-35s, still linked through the Hawkeye, continue methodical pursuit out to 67 nautical miles from the carrier group. 3 more kills. 1 probable. 2 damaged aircraft limp toward the coast, trailing smoke. At 0531 hours, the final tally inside the immediate engagement area is staggering. 26 anti-ship missiles launched, 26 defeated. 34 Iranian aircraft destroyed outright, 9 more critically damaged. U.S. losses. 1 F-35C lost after controlled ejection during recovery from cumulative fragment damage. Pilot alive in the water. 1 F-35C damaged but flyable. 2 sailors wounded by deck fragments. The offensive punch has failed. At 0532 hours, rescue operations begin while combat air patrol remains overhead. An MH-60S launches from the carrier with a pararescue team and 2 rescue swimmers. The downed pilot's beacon pulses from a patch of oil-dark C-19 nautical miles southeast of the main engagement line. A second Seahawk orbits higher to cover the pickup. No one relaxes. Iranian coastal batteries remain active. Surface contacts remain under surveillance. The battle space is quieter, not safe. At 0534 hours, 17 minutes after initial contact, Silence spreads across the central Gulf. It is not peace. It is the sudden absence of organized threat. Damage assessment follows with ruthless efficiency. Abraham Lincoln reports no mission kill damage. Flight deck intact, catapults operational, arresting gear green. One destroyer records superficial topside scarring and 2 minor casualties. Both sailors are stabilized within minutes. The recovered F-35C pilot is hoisted at 05:36 hours, conscious and responsive, with a fractured wrist and burns to one hand. Fire crews on the carrier inspect every exposed surface for fragments and fuel residue. Ammunition expenditures are logged, sensors recalibrated, aircraft fuel states checked. Spare cap sections are launched to ensure no second wave emerges from the Iranian coast. The visual evidence is overwhelming. Burning slicks mark multiple impact points. Search radars still track descending debris. Infrared cameras record isolated fires on the water where aircraft fuel continues to burn. Iranian rescue craft begin moving out from coastal bases, but they stay outside the carrier group's defensive line. The message is unambiguous. The strike failed, and any continuation will meet a fully awake fleet. The tactical lessons were immediate. Iran attempted to solve a modern sensor problem with mass and compression. Many aircraft, multiple axes, mixed altitudes, and overlapping missile release windows. That doctrine can overwhelm an unprepared defender. It fails against a force that fuses airborne warning, stealth interceptors, electronic attack, and layered naval air defense into one seamless system. The F-35 squadron was hit, but not broken. That distinction matters. In high-end combat, the side that absorbs first contact and preserves decision-making usually wins the next 10 minutes. Strategic ramifications cascaded across the region before the smoke dissipated. Gulf shipping monitors saw the battle unfold in real time through transponder gaps, emergency routing changes, and sudden insurance alerts. Regional air forces elevated readiness. Command centers from Riyadh to Doha reviewed the same conclusion. A 70-aircraft strike package had entered the Gulf battlespace with surprise on its side and still failed to impose local control. That outcome altered threat calculations overnight. This engagement fundamentally reshaped perceptions of air power inside constrained maritime geography. The Persian Gulf is not open ocean. It is a compressed missile arena where reaction time is measured in seconds, and radar horizons are brutally short. Iranian planners counted on those constraints. They expected coastal proximity to compensate for technological inferiority. Instead, the same geometry favored the force with better fusion, cleaner discipline, and deeper defensive layering. Every nautical mile became lethal to the attacker on the way in. Doctrinally, the engagement confirmed 4 realities. First, stealth aircraft are most decisive when integrated with off-board sensors, not when used as solitary hunters. Second, shipboard defense is strongest when commanders resist the temptation to hold fire too long. The outer layers matter. Third, electronic attack did not merely degrade Iranian targeting, it fractured their timing, and timing was the entire architecture of the raid. Fourth, close-in systems remain indispensable. The Phalanx CIWS did not win the battle, but it prevented the single leaker that could have turned a tactical victory into a strategic disaster. The political effects were equally severe even without immediate escalation beyond the fight itself. Tehran could claim courage and scale. It could not credibly claim success. A large offensive force had been committed and broken in less than 20 minutes, with negligible American losses and no closure of the sea lane. For Washington's regional partners, that result restored confidence in the credibility of U.S. naval presence. For adversaries, it imposed a harsher lesson. Salvos alone are not strategy, and spectacle is not combat power. There was also a subtler consequence. The downing of even a single F-35C, despite pilot recovery, ensured that no serious military would dismiss the threat. 70 aircraft had not been enough to win. They had been enough to prove that saturation still has teeth if even one seam is exposed. That lesson would drive procurement, readiness cycles, electronic warfare investment, and forward deployment planning long after the wreckage cooled. By sunset, analysts would reduce the fight to numbers. 70 Iranian fighters committed, 34 destroyed, 9 critically damaged, 26 anti-ship missiles intercepted, 1 U.S. F-35C lost, pilot recovered, 2 sailors wounded, total elapsed decisive phase, 17 minutes. But numbers alone missed the deeper truth. This was a contest of command coherence under compression. One force entered the engagement believing volume could dislocate a superior adversary. The other absorbed the shock, preserved the picture, and dismantled the attack layer by layer until the raid no longer existed as a coherent military act. 17 minutes transformed a 70-aircraft offensive into a warning visible across the entire region. In the narrow geometry of the Gulf, mass without control became wreckage, and timing without survivability became loss. The strait remains open not through negotiation, but through demonstrated capability.